Hey there, food enthusiasts! Welcome to my channel, where wholesome and natural ingredients are transformed into healthy and delicious recipes. But before we dive into this mouth-watering bowl of goodness, let's talk about the benefits of incorporating low-carb alternatives into your diet. It can assist in weight management by stabilizing blood sugar levels and reducing cravings. It can also lead to better blood sugar control, reducing the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. It can have a positive effect on heart health and improving other risk factors for heart disease. You see, low-carb eating isn't just a trend, it's a lifestyle change with some fantastic advantages. But enough about that, let's get into the good stuff. You will need 4 cups of vegetable broth or beef broth, 1 onion, ginger, some cinnamon sticks, star anise, which is a star-shaped spice that is a dried fruit from the Asian evergreen. It's a common ingredient in Chinese and Vietnamese cuisines and has a sweet flavor that is pretty similar to licorice. Whole cloves, whole cardamom, some coriander seeds, and some fish sauce, which is completely optional. Some salt and crushed red pepper for flavoring. For our noodle, I have 2 options to show you today. The first one is called Healthy Noodles, which is a low-carb and low-calorie alternative to the traditional Vietnamese pho noodle with 0 net carbs. The main ingredient is soybean fiber. If you have issues with using soybean, the other alternative is making zucchini noodles. For the protein, I'm using 2 options, one being sliced beef and the other as a vegetarian option, I'm using tofu. I will be adding many toppings to our pho today, of which many are optional. There's basil, some green onions, jalapenos, bean sprouts, some mint, and lime. I like to prep all the ingredients before I start cooking. It makes it a lot easier when everything's ready to go. Starting with the spices for the broth, I'm measuring out 2 star anises, half a teaspoon of whole cloves, cardamom pods, coriander seeds, and 1 cinnamon stick. As a side note, these measurements are based on a 4-cup broth. Here, I'm cutting 1 onion and a ginger root. These will be charred separately in the oven. The charring adds a rich, smoky flavor to your broth. To prep the remaining ingredients, I'm cutting the lime into wedges, removing the stems from the mint, and mashing it slightly. I found it helps release some of the aroma. And here I'm removing the stems from the basil as well. And voila, your topping is now ready. Before making the broth, I will be charring the onions as well as the ginger in the oven using the broil setting. While the onion and the ginger are charring, I will be roasting the spices over the oven. I will typically leave it over the stove until I start hearing some popping sounds, just like that. And now I know it's ready. Using a strainer, I will put all the spices together, with the exception of the cinnamon stick. I will add the spices and the cinnamon stick to the broth and let it simmer over medium to very low heat for about 30 minutes. Trust me, the wait is worth it. It allows for all those fantastic flavors to melt together. Don't forget about your charred onion and ginger. This is very important to remember to add, with enough time for the broth to also be infused with the aroma of these two different vegetables. After about 30 minutes, our broth is ready to serve. Here I'm removing the onions, the ginger, as well as the spices from the broth. Another way of making the broth is to add the spices directly in, without using the strainer, and then just straining it out afterwards. This is what I did here when I was prepping the beef broth. I also added some chili flake peppers and fish sauce for flavoring, but this is completely optional. While that's happening, let's get our zucchini noodles ready. Using a vegetable spiler makes it a lot easier to make your own zucchini noodle at home, but you can also find these in the grocery store. I am then prepping my healthy noodle. You can hardly tell the difference from a pho noodle, and the taste and texture is not too far off either. I like to cook my beef broth, so here I am just charring both sides and adding some bouillon sticks for more flavoring. Because it's thin meat, there is no need to cook it for too long. And now it's time to serve. I am starting the vegetarian option here. The main difference here is really the protein and the broth type. I am using the zucchini noodle as my base and the tofu for my protein, as well as the vegetable broth as the option. The other way of doing this is by using the beef as my protein, beef broth, and the healthy noodles. Now it's time to pile on all the assortments of the topping for the burst of color and flavor. And there you have it, 2 steaming bowls of low-carb pho that's not just delicious but also guilt-free. Thanks for joining me today. If you enjoyed this recipe, Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more tasty, healthy recipes. Until next time.